Okay, so this is episode 1 of my vlog on my recovery, my journey through a liver transplant. When I was first diagnosed in 2013, and when they came to me, I was in the hospital for pneumonia. And when they came to me and told me that I had end-stage liver failure, I wasn't quite sure what they meant. And they just said that, you know, that's all they said, really. They asked me if I had any questions, and at that time I really didn't know what it meant. I didn't even want to admit that. I thought if it was something really bad, they would have said something. I did ask, what it meant. Was it fatal? And they just said that I needed to change the way I ate and just to be more healthy, that could reverse it. So I was like, okay, well, sure. Did I take it seriously at that time? Not really, because they kind of made it seem like it wasn't really all that. Um, However, during that time, I got a new insurance company at work. And so at that point, I was only allowed to go to the doctor 4 times a year. That's the only amount of coverage I had, was to go to the doctor 4 times a year. And being a diabetic, and I had been diagnosed as a diabetic in 2002, and I had lost 70 pounds. So that was really good. And I maintained that weight loss. I didn't gain it back. But I had a really bad prescription plan as well. And so they didn't want to pay for the insulin. And insulin was running, they were going to charge me $1,500. I didn't have that kind of money. Even working in the industry I was working in at the time, and I was doing fairly well, I couldn't afford that type of money for medication. So at that point, I just felt desperate. I didn't know what to do. I had no one medically to turn to. My family tried to support me, but none of us realized the gravity at that point. Um, when they told me I had cirrhosis of the liver, I could not believe it because I did not drink. And I was like, are you serious? How did I get that? And they said, well, it could be because you were overweight. It could be because you're a diabetic. We don't really know exactly what transpired, but that's what we're thinking. I was like, okay. And granted, um, I had been, my heaviest, I was 316 pounds. But at that time, I had already lost the 70 pounds and I was down to 316. 265, sorry. So, just kind of, I just really didn't know what to think. It was all above my head, and I didn't do a whole lot of research on it. We just didn't realize the gravity, and nobody really impressed on that with me. Um, but during the time that my sugar kept escalating, and instead of me being able to maintain it as I was doing before, now it was spiking and it was going up to 600. And by all means, I should have been in the hospital because I could have went into a coma. I could have died from sugar that high. I would go to the ER. My sister witnessed me. She went with me one time to the ER, and I didn't get a room. I was put in the hallway, and they said, well, we're going to give you some insulin, and we'll see how it goes. So they got down to barely 300, and then they sent me home. Not that time. Not only that time, but several times did they do that. They would send me home and my sugar be so high, and they wouldn't give me a prescription for the insulin. They wouldn't help me control it. They didn't do anything other than slap a Band-Aid on it, give me enough insulin to bring it down, and then send me home. No one questioned why I wasn't on medication, why it wasn't being controlled. No one questioned it. So, unbeknownst to me, during this time, my liver started taking a real turn, and it really started getting worse. Well, in 2000, and I want to say um, 16, I met my primary care doctor, Dr. Demetrio, and he really knocked some sense into me and just said, we need to get your sugar under control. He wasn't concerned about my liver because, he was more concerned about my sugar not being under control, because at that point, that was life-threatening, more so than the other. And so there was that issue. So I had to, again, sorry, that's a little bright. So again, I had to really work hard to try to bring my sugar down. Well, I wasn't very successful at it. And wasn't very, how do I put it, committed to the ends. I wanted things to be easy for me. I didn't want to have to worry about that. And I didn't want to take my medicine as I was supposed to take it, or do the shots like I was supposed to, and really didn't understand um, the dietary necessities of, of my sugar. I didn't do any research. I really just did, I wasn't given any kind of education classes, because normally when you do get diagnosed with diabetes, they do, send you to a class on how to eat. Not done. So there was that. And then 2014, I went to the Philippines and I worked over there for 3 months. And while I was there, I was always tired, always just tired. And I can't tell you how many times I would be with my family and just fall asleep, just be sitting there and fall asleep. All I wanted to do in my life from 2014 to 2021 was sleep. So for 7 years, that was pretty much my life as I slept. I was tired all the time. I could barely make it. But I did at work. I would go to work and I would put in 8 to 12 hours a day and come home exhausted. I looked horrible, but I worked, um and I did that, for years. And not taking care of myself, not eating, not getting rest, under enormous stress. My mother was ill. My brother was ill. Um, my mom, she passed, and that took a heavy toll on me. And then my brother, he had a double lung transplant. He passed away from rejection a year or two after my mom died. And that broke my heart. It really did. And I, to this day, cannot get over the grief of all that. I really can't. You would think that with time it would lessen the pain, but it doesn't. I'm from a very close family. There was 8 of us, and my mom and dad were not rich. They weren't even middle class. But what we lacked in money, we had in love, and we had in food. And, we were never denied dinners or anything like that. We were never forced to eat certain foods. We grew up eating collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, cornbread. We always had fresh vegetables, and we always had meat, whether we wanted the meat or not. There was some nights I wouldn't eat the meat. I just wanted the vegetables because they were so good. Even to this day, I love fresh vegetables. But I'm from the South. My parents were born and raised in Georgia. They came down to Florida after the first four of us were born, and then the last four were born in Florida. So there were eight of us, and we lost my oldest brother first. My dad died from renal failure, and he was a diabetic. And then my oldest brother passed, and he died from, I don't know exactly, but I believe it was the cirrhosis of the liver. And then, but he was an alcoholic. And then there was a boy and two girls after the oldest brother, and then another girl and two twin boys, and then me. And one of the twins, he passed, and he's the one that had the double lung transplant, and he died from rejection. And the last four of us were so very close. But so were the first four. They were, five of them are old enough to be my parents, and they, you know, they cared very deeply for me, and they were really, really concerned when I got really sick. So I'm going to cut this video here, but I will go into what happened along the way. I want to get my thought process back to how I want this to be presented. I want this video to be more of something that you can kind of use as some help to know that you're not alone, and maybe provide some insights that I didn't know, that maybe you don't know, and something to look for. I am post transplant surgery. I got my surgery in February 1st of 2022, so this year. My recovery was wonderful, but between 2014 and 2022, I almost died. So I want to go over, want to let you know what I went through so that you are aware and can maybe prevent some of the stuff that happened to me. You can be on the lookout for, and because sometimes the doctors are not going to tell you things unless you ask. And some of the best questions to ask, I can help you with that as well. And I can also tell you what not to do, because that's genuinely what I did, was what not to do. So I will help you with that. Okay. All right. So this is going to be the end for video 1. Thank you, and you have a good day.